Who Shapes a Man? Inheritance, Influence, and the Myth of the Self-Made Man by Nick Para. One of the most durable, yet destructive myths in modern masculinity is the idea of the ruggedly individual self-made man. The belief that a man's character is forged alone, that his strength emerges when he is in self-imposed isolation, and that his masculinity and dominance is something he is due rather than something he must first inherit, then constantly work at. This myth of being owed something is appealing for many because it removes responsibility for where we come from. It is also very dangerous. It allows men to reproduce and inflict harm without ever examining its source, themself. Across the first 5 Intelligent Masculinity conversations, one reality has surfaced clearly again and again. Masculinity does not begin with ideology, dominance, or certainty. It begins with influence. Sometimes nurturing, sometimes absent, sometimes harmful, sometimes contradictory. The work of masculinity is not denying that inheritance, but refusing to outsource our accountability once we recognize it. Shane Urich describes his father not as an idealized figure, but as a man who changed, and that distinction and understanding towards growth mattered more than a mythologized perfection. As Shane recounted, our fathers weren't perfect. They learned, they softened, they modeled accountability and partnership. This framing from Shane immediately disrupts the heroic, self-made mythology often attached to masculinity. In Shane and our experiences, true strength is not about being right the first time. It is about being willing to grow through acceptance and learning from both our successes and failures. For Sherrod Swaney, this story of inheritance looks drastically different. His father's absence, shaped by addiction and instability, did not eliminate masculine formation. Instead, it intensified it. Sherrod told us, "I had to figure out how to be my own father." There is no romanticism in Sherrod's statement. It is a raw acknowledgement of necessity. Sherrod did not inherit a stable model of masculinity. He inherited a vacuum. Yet, what mattered most in Sherrod's story is not that this absence existed. Rather, that he refused to let it become an excuse for avoidance or cruelty. Sherrod names the cost of unexamined inheritance directly. Finding myself meant rejecting the idea that masculinity was about hiding emotions. That model didn't survive reality. Lawrence Winterman's personal reflections further complicate this picture, while expanding on the lessons learned from Sherrod, by rejecting certainty itself as a masculine anchor. Rather than pointing to a singular role model, Lawrence emphasized living without rigid gender roles or policing, and without pretending that clarity arrives fully formed. In Lawrence's own words, authenticity isn't something you figure out once. It's a daily practice. Fragile masculinity often clings to this false sense of certainty as a protective shield, while Lawrence's posture rejects that notion as a failing impulse. Masculinity, in his framing, is not about knowing who you are at all times. It is about remaining accountable while you are still becoming, a masculinity focused on a reflective growth. Walter Ryan then took these threads and tied them together into a hard boundary. Masculinity collapses when it requires other people to abandon reality for you. Walter's understanding is crucial in our larger discussion because it exposes how this ego-driven masculinity maintains itself, not through strength, but through escalation and domination. When accountability threatens the self-myth, fragile masculinity responds with denial, gaslighting, and coercion. Repair and growth become impossible because truth itself is treated as an enemy. Against that, Walter offers a radically simple daily practice of voluntary accountability. An apology isn't weakness. I'm sorry only becomes powerful when it's honest and unqualified. That simple yet powerful practice identifying and accepting one's own share of harm, then naming it without any escape clauses becomes an important sorting mechanism for where we focus our emotional energy. Those capable of accountability reciprocate with empathy and understand, while those invested in domination reveal themselves as they demand you apologize only ever on their behalf. Finally, Dr. Eric Lulov brings the longest view. Speaking as a physician, father, and partner, he reframes masculinity away from urgency and towards intentional, measured presence. Eric said, "Power without restraint is destruction." The masculinity Eric described is not a reactive one. It is patient and proactive. He rejects the idea that speed equals strength, arguing instead that maturity is the ability to pause, regulate, and choose deliberately. Eric tied it all together when he spoke an important truth. Leadership begins with self-regulation. What emerges across these 5 conversations is not a single masculine archetype. Instead, we see a shared refusal to outsource responsibility where fathers matter, absence matters, women matter, mentors matter, people matter, and failures matter. And that inheritance, no matter how formidable, is not destiny. It requires constant vigilance and daily practice. Accountability begins where explanation ends. Shane Urich framed it plainly. If you don't stop and reflect, you just become a vessel for whatever shaped you, and that's not strength. This powerful statement is the hinge point of intelligent masculinity. You do not choose what has shaped you, but you are fully responsible for what you carry forward. Masculinity is not proven by suffering, absence, or hardship. It is proven by what a man refuses to excuse once he understands those forces. It is proven through the discipline to live with the consequences of his actions and values. The self-made man is a myth. The self-governed man is not. Inheritance becomes just the starting line, not the finish. That was Who Shapes a Man? And I am Nick Perro. Thank you, and have a great day.